This is the West Riding. Go up into its wild stretches of moor, seek out a town in one of its steep valleys, and you'll find a people with a life and ways of their own. Rough, sweeping hills, crowned with dark rocks and purple heather, miles and miles of lonely moor where the curlews dip and call, and the great winds tear across the sky, driving the clouds before them, bending even the stubborn heather. That's our country. The wild novels of the Bronte sisters were born in these moorlands. Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre were written about these lonely houses and the brooding loneliness of the West Riding Hills. Yes, it's a hard country, especially on the tops. But follow the trickle of water which starts under a boulder. Follow it down from its remote moorland cradle, and it'll lead you through lovely valleys where every bend in the river reveals a village of old stone houses and men who work with their hands. Now the sheep, grazed on the rough expanses of the fells, are being rounded up. For the beginning of April is lambing time, and the dalesmen must move their flocks to the sheltered fields nearer the farms. Stone walls stretch in endless straight lines across and over these dales. The people who first enclosed the moors are forgotten, but the walls are repaired each year with the same old skill. Dry stone walling is not easy. You learn to find the right shaped stone when you're a boy, and so the craft goes on. In a village here and there, you may still find the besom maker, binding bundles of moorland ling together to make brooms and packing. As village follows village and the river widens, the rough moors are forgotten in the quiet of gentle meadows. Yes, the dales are rich in water, as the monks of old knew well when they built their abbeys, like Bolton on the wharf. You wouldn't call the West Riding easy farming country, but the short, sweet grass which grows in the limestone dales and the rougher grasses high up on the fells can pasture many sheep. There were already 10,000 sheep in Yorkshire, and their wool was being shipped as far away as Italy when Skipton Castle was built 600 years ago. The Earl was rich with wool. He carved above his gate the word désormais, or as we might say in Yorkshire, we shall do it whatever the opposition. A motto still graved deep in the hearts of this stubborn and independent moorland people.
As I got to know West Riding better, biking through it and talking with people, I began to understand how it was that this great textile industry, with its smoke-black towns, had grown out of the heart of our hills. For one thing, our position on the map's got a lot to do with it. Now, here's the West Riding, right in the heart of Great Britain. Here are the ranges of the Pennine chain, and from these hills and moors run the fast-flowing rivers, here and here and here. That's meant there has always been plenty of water to make power, water to turn the mills, water in every village to scour and dye, and wool on the hills, all that was needed for making cloth. People were weaving cloth in the cottages and villages of the West Riding Hills 700 years ago. Some folks say longer than that. The weaver worked at home in his own cottage, or in a mill by the stream. The loom stood in the upstairs room with its many windows to give him light. When his piece of cloth was woven, the weaver threw it over his donkey's back and set off with it down the rough pack-horse track and over the pack-horse bridge with its low parapets, so that the cloth would swing clear, and so to the market. For hundreds of years, in homesteads tucked away in the folds of the moors, the West Riding men wove their cloth on their own looms and were their own masters. Then the bouncing lid of a boiling kettle pointed a new power: steam. All over the West Riding, the new machines began to turn, and once again the raw materials were close at hand. Towns grew and spread and joined with each other. Towns born for one purpose: the making of cloth for the whole world. And so the great body of weavers began to move down the valleys to the new mills, for they couldn't compete against machine-made cloth. They had to leave behind their old pack roads among the heather. Their cottages beside the streams were left to the mercy of wind and rain. There was no longer any life for them in the hills. At first they resisted bitterly, for in the mills they would no longer be their own masters. But the world needed their skill, so they came at last to the towns and mastered the machines. They achieved more than any of them had ever dreamed, and in so doing won for themselves new opportunities to enjoy their countryside. In all this change, the people remained as they had always been: sturdy, independent, eager to make the most out of life in any surrounding.
These are the West Riding folk. They are not smooth or gracious. They have no tricks of manner, nor ways to flatter. They are not swift of fashion, nor easy to bend. But the heart within them, as their own moors, is spacious. Their heads are not bowed, and they go. It will not matter what danger opposes or threatens. They go on to the end.